All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to our next video, which is going to focus on how to do the RAP summary strategy. Please make sure you've downloaded the handout that goes along with this, and especially you want to be looking at that instead of my ugly mug here on the screen. So make sure that you've downloaded that. So that'll be very helpful as we go through and do this activity. So we're really going to be talking about a language art strategy here. In other words, one that combines both reading and writing skills. And it is, as research tells us, one of the highest yield, or in other words, most effective strategies that we can teach our students in language arts and reading and writing. And this is about how to do a summary. And we're going to use a technique called RAP in order to do it. Does this mean that Steve is going to rap about a summary? Yo! No, I'm not. Not a whole lot of words rhyme with summary anyway, like flummery, mummery, and I don't even know what those words mean. So we are not going to do a rap about summary. But instead, we're going to use RAP as an acronym, which is going to help us to understand the steps involved with this, something easier for students to remember as they go through. I love acronyms. Love them, love them, love them, love them, love them. So what does RAP stand for? RAP stands for, or the R in it stands for read. It's intimidating for students to read a huge, long piece of writing. So we're going to boil it down and read it paragraph by paragraph by paragraph. So the R stands for read. Read a paragraph at a time. A stands for ask questions. You can see on your handout the questions we'll be asking. What is the topic? What's the most important thing it tells me about the topic, and what are some key details? So I'm going to ask those questions. And then finally, I am going to paraphrase, or in other words, I'm going to put in my own words a sentence that I've created that summarizes what the author is saying. I'm going to aim for about 10 words per paragraph as I do this. So read, ask, questions, paraphrase is what RAP stands for, not me rapping, thankfully. Okay, so if I was doing this with my students, I always like to try to get some interest and start with a mystery. And so we're just going to ask a question, simple mystery. And the question is going to be, is this an effective summary? And I would put up on the screen the summary of The Wizard of Oz, which says, transported to a surreal landscape. A young girl kills the first person she meets and then teams up with 3 strangers to kill again. And ask, is this an effective summary of The Wizard of Oz movie? Have students talk. And hopefully through the discussion, what we're going to bring out is that this is really not a very effective summary. Literally true, but really misses a whole lot of what the author was trying to convey, or the movie director was trying to convey through the movie. Like there's no place like home, and the camaraderie of Dorothy, and the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion, and the battle of good versus evil. And there's a lot of things going on in that. And actually, really, the real meaning of the Wizard of Oz book is deeper. And if you hang around at the end of the video, I'll share what the meaning of the Wizard of Oz book is. So got a little mystery to keep you hanging on there. So if I was doing this with my students, we'd start with that. I'd also want to sell them why learning this strategy is valuable, because as we know, students are tuned into WIIFM. What's in it for me? And they are really in tune to that. We've got to be able to sell them why the strategy is going to help them. And we could talk about how, as they go out into the world of work, a lot of times a boss might say, summarize this for me. You've got a bunch of information. What's the most important thing we need to know about this? Or if we're writing a narrative about what occurred in the workplace at a certain time, we don't want to write 52 pages. We want to just kind of put it out there. Here are the facts. Boil it down to the most important things. Or as our students transition on to post-secondary education, they're going to be reading these big honking books. So how can they be able to take all this content and boil it down into what are the most important things? This strategy will help them to do that. So maybe you could talk to individual students and show them, as their goals are, how this will help them to reach and to achieve their goals. So make sure you tune them into WIIFM. Okay, so I'm going to do a brief think aloud here, showing you how I'd actually model for my students how to do this RAP summary strategy. So here we go. Okay, guys, welcome into class tonight. We talked a little bit last week about this RAP summary strategy. We've had a few minutes now to talk about what makes an effective summary, and we've talked about why it's important to learn summaries. So let's get in to this strategy. We're going to use the RAP strategy. And you've got your sheet there with me where RAP stands for, or the R in RAP stands for read. We're going to read a passage paragraph by paragraph by paragraph. The A in RAP stands for ask questions. You see down there, those 3 questions we're going to ask. What's the topic? What's the most important thing it tells me about the topic? And also, what are the most important details that are going on? So read, ask questions, and then finally, paraphrase. In other words, we're going to put into our own words what the author's saying and try to shoot for about 10 words for each paragraph. The world will not end if we have more than that or less than that. That's just kind of the goal that we're going to shoot for. So let me show you guys. I'm going to do a little think aloud here. You're going to help me as we go through. But I'm going to read this first to do that R in the RAP. So let's read this together. It says it's probably one of the most overused phrases in job hunting. First impressions are critical. Remember, you're marketing a product, yourself, to a potential employer, and the first thing the employer sees when greeting you is the way you dress. So you must make every effort to have the proper dress for the type of job you're seeking. Will dressing properly get you the job? Of course not, but it will give you a competitive edge and a positive first impression. Let's read it again. See, it's probably one of the most overused phrases in job hunting. First impressions are critical. As we read this time, let's see if we can find a word or words that's repeated again. Remember, you're marketing a product yourself to a potential employer, and the first thing the employer sees when greeting you is the way you dress. So you must make every effort to have the proper dress for the type of job you're seeking. Will dressing properly get you the job? Of course not, but it will give you a competitive edge and a positive first impression. So we were looking repeated words, repeated words, repeated words. And so this will help us to tune into the topic here. I saw several times dress repeated, the word dress repeated. The word dress, there's a couple different times here. Yeah, there it was. I know I saw another one. There's the word dress. But dressing for when? And I think that's also a critical part. I think it's really dressing for job hunting. Dressing for job hunting. We're really looking at a potential employer. That's the same thing. We're hunting for a job. Potential means we don't have that yet. We could have this in the future. So it's really job hunting, job seeking, potential employer. These things I see repeated over and over and over again. So I'm going to move here to my sheet here, and I've circled keywords, and essentially those are dress, and those are dress for job seeking. And that's really, I would have to say, if that's my topic for this. How do you dress when you are job seeking, when you're going out and you're interviewing for jobs? And so now I want to try to think about, then I've got my topic here. I'm really dressing for job hunting. I'm really trying to say, well, what's the most important thing that it says about that? And I think what it says, looking over here, I'm seeing things like first impressions are critical, that you're marketing yourself, that the dress needs to be proper in that case. I see that word properly repeated over and over and over again. So our theme, dressing for job hunting, and what is it saying is that dressing properly makes a good first impression. So let's go back to our sheet here. So we're dressing for job seeking, and what it's kind of always trying to say is that proper dress makes a good impression. Okay, so I've kind of got my topic. I'm seeing some most important things. It's telling me I've got some important details there as well. So what I'm going to try to do now is create a sentence that summarizes this. It basically takes what the author's saying, and in my own words, about 10 of them, try to create this summary in my own words. So I'm just going to throw something up. We can kind of talk about how it's going to go. Let me just say maybe like dress for success when job hunting. So I want you to think a minute. Talk to the folks at your table. Do you agree that this has the main idea, that this has the critical details, and that it kind of boils down what the author's saying in that paragraph in one sentence? Okay, so after I'd have the students talk, I hope they would come up with this isn't as complete as it could be. We could have something else. And I'm going to leave this sentence that maybe was not so good up here and do my other sentence. And I would really ask the students, what are we lacking in this? How can we extend this to make it better? Dress for success really isn't clear is one thing I hope my students would come up with. And so we might say instead, dressing professionally, and that means different things for different jobs, but dressing to look like a professionally, this part is still good because we're really talking about we're dressing for job seeking. So dressing for success when job hunting. And one of the key details was that it makes a good first impression, and that was what we were lacking in our original summary. So we're going to say dressing professionally when job hunting makes a strong first impression. So does that get everything? Dress, job seeking, making a good first impression. I'd have, again, students talk at their tables, get feedback, have them decide whether this is a great summary sentence or not. And let's see, I might even actually change this to maybe from strong to maybe, because that's really, what does that mean? Maybe makes a positive first impression. I like that a little bit better. Let's see, how many words is that? Dressing professionally, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Bingo, touchdown. We actually got 10 words exactly, which is great. So we would, and of course we're going to do this multiple times if I was doing this with a student. And I do think it's important that we leave up other ones there so students can see the difference between a rough draft, so to speak, and what the final one's going to look like. So leave those ones that you come up with there. And again, I did this in lightning speed. We would take a lot more time and have a lot more student involvement as we do this. Even when we're doing a think aloud, we still can involve our students in a lot of ways. We could get them to read it. We could get them to offer their own sentences. So there's a lot of ways that we could get student involvement in this. So this strategy also is one that I would use a lot of scaffolding with. What do you mean by that? Scaffolding is we're going to give students a lot of help at first, and then over time take that help away so they're doing it more on their own. So what we might do is work as a whole class at first, then divide them into maybe table groups, then maybe have them work in pairs, and then maybe have them work as individually. They're going to need a lot of exposure and a lot of practice to this. It is always key to repeat things. Actually, research says sometimes for a new skill, it might take up to 7 exposures for them to master it. We don't always have that time with our students who want their high school equivalency and whatever yesterday. But repeating is key. Just reminds me of that old joke, Pete and repeat are sitting on a fence. Pete falls off, who's left? Repeat. Pete and repeat are sitting on a fence. Pete falls off. Who's left? Okay, we could go through this for days, but just to make sure we repeat. Okay, so you've survived here to the end, and I promised you I would tell you the true meaning of the Wizard of Oz books written by L. Frank Baum back in the 1890s. Well, he wrote it as an allegory for the free coinage of silver. There was a big movement going on in the United States at that time. Should we stay on the gold standard, which the United States had been on for many years, or should we instead adopt the free coinage of silver? A lot of silver mines going big time in the West. This would have increased the money supply, helped the economy, helped people in debt. Williams Jennings Bryan, who was like the Bernie Sanders of the 1890s, was really heavily behind this idea. So in the book, Dorothy has silver shoes and walks on streets of gold, therefore proving the superiority of silver over gold, silver over gold. So that's really the true meaning of the Wizard of Oz, an allegory for free silver. So no extra charge for that. Please use this RAP summary strategy or whatever strategy you use to teach summary. I don't care how you do it. Teach the skill of summarizing, crucial for our students. Thank you and happy teaching.